Hey everybody, it's Wintermute, and I want to touch on a kind of hot button topic right now. And it's gonna sound weird coming for me to tell you this, but here it is. Don't throw away your D&D books. Don't feel bad that you have an ongoing D&D campaign and you're going to stick with D&D until the end of that campaign at the very least. And don't feel bad that you just got a bunch of books for Christmas and you're just getting into the hobby and it's like, "Oh, well, this is go." Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad at all if you really don't want to move on to a different system. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. And don't throw those books away. Listen to me. There are still people who, uh, to be fair, let me throw this out there. I started with AD&D. I started with that classic red box, for those who know what that is. That was my very first introduction. I bought that. I enjoyed that. I didn't even have anybody to play with. I just sort of had it and read over it 1,000 times. And then I bought some of the other books later on as I got a little older. And started finding people to play with. But that was my first exposure. And um, I absolutely look back at those rules and want to barf. I'm very into rules. I like rules. I like picking apart rules. I like designing rules. I like, putting the pieces together and creating a good system. Not just in tabletop RPGs, but board gaming. Board gaming is a big part of my life too. And I've always been fascinated by rules. It's kind of something I tend to mentally hyper focus on when given the chance. And AD&D, I hate those rules. I do not like them. They do not work well. I but but there is nothing wrong if you do like them and you continue to play by them to this day. And I know there are groups that do. I just watched a YouTube video not too long ago where somebody basically said, "I still run a Dark Sun AD&D campaign I have for 20 something years." There's nothing wrong with that. Would I turn down the opportunity to play in that game? Probably, because the way the rules work is important to me. And this goes back to a little bit of my video about generic systems versus specific systems, and that's a whole nother video. Go watch that. But the rules are important to me, and I don't like the AD&D rules. But there's nothing wrong if you still play AD&D, even though there isn't much support out there for it anymore. There is still some, but there isn't much support out for it anymore. So there's nothing wrong that you enjoy playing D&D fifth edition. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'll tell you right now, there will, and unlike AD&D, which really has very little support, there will still be a lot of support for fifth edition in years to come. I have no doubt. No doubt at all whatsoever. Even if Wizards loses 90% of their player base, which may be a bit high, direct player base, you're still going to get a lot of people who are right now branching out into other systems and they want to try other things because they don't feel, yeah, and it's a mixed bag for a lot of people. They feel bad in continuing to play something that is a problem from a problematic company, a horrible, nasty, problematic company. And I understand that. However, that doesn't mean that the product they put out was bad. Okay? Don't let what's going on right now ruin your love of D&D. And if you want to continue past this point to play AD 5th edition, AD or DD 5th edition, go right ahead. I would support you, even though I don't play D&D and I absolutely hate Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro at this point. Go keep playing. Don't feel bad. Don't throw those books away. Go have fun with your friends. Okay? I kind of liken this to let's the biggest example of this is probably Game of Thrones. Okay, a lot of people who play D&D are also into Game of Thrones, and you know, so you're going to understand this. Seasons 1 through 7, fantastic. Now I haven't even watched the whole series. I've read all the books, but I haven't watched the whole series yet. But I absolutely thoroughly enjoy the first couple seasons that I did have a chance to watch. But I know season 8 really drops the ball. And for some people, they now, once that happened, look back at the entire experience of Game of Thrones with, kind of distance or disdain at the worst level. Well, at the worst level, yeah, probably disdain and revulsion because season 8 was so bad. Where there's other people at least kind of maybe distance themselves from it by at least putting up the disclaimer. Oh man, I love Game of Thrones, except for season 8. You know what? Perfectly reasonable qualifier. But me, I look back at it, and this isn't. There are plenty of examples. So there are lots of examples I could use. This is just the most prominent that a lot of people understand. But if you look back at something that had one or two bad problems with it, and you let those overshadow the entire experience, you can get a skewed view of it. And it can kind of, you can take something that was actually really good for the most part and really enjoyable for the most part and kind of allow it to kind of be poisoned in your memory. Don't let that happen here. Don't let that happen here. Okay. If you look back at D&D with nothing but fond memories, you're just troubled by what's going on right now. Don't ever feel bad about looking back at those fond memories and enjoying them. Just accept that was then, this is now. And I'll be honest, I feel this is kind of advice that a lot of people could use in any facet of life. Um, what's going on right now is really poisoning the brand. It's destroying the brand. But you will still find people who will want to play D&D. They probably have dabbled in Pathfinder or other systems, and they just don't like the rules, or they just don't feel right doing that. That just isn't them. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think D&D Fifth Edition will live on beyond this, well beyond this disaster. Probably it could very well live on for decades after this disaster. When Wizards of the Coast is on 12th edition, that they want you to re-up your subscription for and buy all the new rule books for. And, this does happen. Games Workshop does this. They just put out new editions way too frequently for their tabletop war games. And yeah, that's heavily opinionated, for me, but I feel that is the case. They're on 10th edition now, and I felt that they should have stopped at fourth or fifth, maybe. Third edition was such a good one that they should have just stayed with that. But part of it is they are a company. There's a prime example of a company, much like Wizards is becoming. They're a company who is motivated mostly by profit and not about quality of product. For the most part, their miniatures are still very good. Don't get me wrong, and they have had some great games in the past. I would still go back and play Gorka Morka if I could find a group. Great game for so many reasons. But even though I absolutely hate Games Workshop at this point and will not touch any product in their miniatures line, I will play the video games. I will read the novels. I will probably watch the television show. But their tabletop miniature games are just absolute garbage, and they are way overpriced for what you get out of them. Even though I feel that way now, I still mostly look back at 40K with fond memories. Okay, there were aspects of 40K that were enjoyable. It's still enjoyable to me to enjoy the world and the experience that I had and some of the people I played with. I just won't get back into the hobby right now. And that's taking into account all the problems that existed then that still exist now with badly written rules, poorly written rule books, overpriced miniatures, imbalanced rules, and the list goes on. Uh, but I know there are people who don't care about any of that, and they still go play 40K, even though they're fully aware of all this stuff, because they just love it. And you know what? That's their business. Now, the situation with Wizards of the Coast is a little different because you've got a lot of people. You will have people who will continue to buy anything Wizards of the Coast puts out for D&D. You're always going to have that, and those people, that's their business. I personally will not do that. But if you're in that camp that says, oh, no, I don't want to spend anything else on D&D product, but I want to keep playing D&D. I don't want to switch over to Pathfinder. Call of Cthulhu ain't my kind of game. World of Darkness ain't my kind of setting. I like that high fantasy medieval stuff. That's your thing, and the other systems just don't interest you. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't feel bad. Keep playing. Keep playing with your group. Don't feel bad if that group wants to keep playing that. I mean, World of Darkness, same thing. I know people who still play old school World of Darkness before the Apocalypse storyline. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a very tooled up system, to account for kind of modern, more updated concepts of how to make it flow better and work better, and that's good. It's good that a system that has been around for a long time can still manage to go, yeah, you know what? That is a better way to do that. We should incorporate that. So I think so on multiple levels here. I think Wizards of the Coast is going to be shot down. And they're going to be chewed up and spit out in court in the long run with so much of this. So you will still see support for third edition stuff, and you will see support for the open gaming license. I don't think it will ever go away. So that said, I think fifth edition will live on in some form or another past sixth edition and this entire debacle. And so don't throw away your rule books. Don't feel bad for having had fun playing it while during the golden age when things were great. Don't feel bad about wanting to continue to feel that way with your group if that's your game. And look to a brighter future where we get past this and you can continue to play and the brand and the management of the brand is in better hands or just a better state. And you're not, you know, you haven't imploded, you are exploded or self-destructed your love of the hobby. And that's I would really hate to see people that happen to people who are so turned off by this entire situation that they don't even move. They just stop. They just stop gaming altogether. And that is the worst thing you can do. Yes, I know this is a brave new world. I know for a lot of people they're going to go out there and they're going to play other systems and they're not going to be happy with them. That's okay. And they're going to want to go back to D&D and find people who want to play D&D 5th edition. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't feel bad. Just ask yourself whether you want to continue to spend money on D&D 5th edition, because that's the great thing about tabletop role-playing games is you really just, I mean, remember, you don't even need rules to play a role-playing game. If you've got a good enough storyteller, you can just adjudicate everything. So rules are good to have, though. Don't get me wrong. They help form structure. They help put everybody on a common playing field about understanding how to move things forward. And from a DM's perspective, I don't want to have to adjudicate every decision every character makes. And I'll talk about that in a different video. So moving forward, don't, don't feel bad. That's my point. Don't feel bad, and don't let this ruin your love of the game. And don't throw away those D&D rule books. Put them on your shelf in a place of on display in a place of pride that you can tell people in the future that's what D&D used to be, and that's what I want it to be again, and that's what I look forward to. So that's my D&D right there. So be proud when you say that. For right now, this is Wintermute out.